You can't always have them all, and that's one of the things we've seen in the NBA, where all-stars put up great numbers but struggle to win championships.
DeRozan to tie it!
The marvelous DeRozan!
Some of these players are in the final stretches of their careers but are yet to win titles. Still, some of them have positioned themselves well enough to get a chance at a title soon. So let's look at which former all-star will finally get their ring next season. Chris Paul. He's one of the greatest point guards in the history of the league, and that's not even debatable. Chris Paul is called the point god for a good reason, and that's because he has a knack for making everyone around him better. He's one of the smartest players we've ever seen, and that explains why he's led the league in assists a lot of times. There's no doubt that he will go down in history as a first-ballot Hall of Fame point guard because he's been an all-star a lot of times and has always made his teams good enough to make the playoffs. But that NBA championship remains elusive. CP3 has played on great teams, including the New Orleans Hornets, Lob City Clippers, Houston Rockets, and the Phoenix Suns.
Paul on the drive, draws the contact, count it, and one!
He made the finals for the first time in his career in 2021 at an advanced age. But he's always fallen short of a title, making that ring an accomplishment that makes it hard for anyone to put him above some of the best point guards in league history in terms of his greatness. He's also in an interesting position right now because he's pushing 40 and is set to play for a young San Antonio Spurs team that won't contend for championships for years. That means that there's a chance that he might not want a title next season. Still, anything is possible when you have a reputation for making everyone around you better, and when you're now set to throw lobs to Victor Wembanyama. Mike Conley. If you're looking for a steady point guard who doesn't do a lot but still gets the job done, Mike Conley should be your best bet. He's always been one of the most consistent performers his entire career, and is one of the most respected players in the NBA. His best years were when he was running with the grindhouse Memphis Grizzlies during the middle of the 2010s. And he was an all-star at one point during his time in Memphis. But the thing about Conley is that he's played for teams good enough to reach the conference finals, but not great enough to win a title. He's never been to the finals, and has struggled to get there.
Mitchell hanging at the other end, 2 seconds to go for the win, and it rims out!
His best shot was last season when he and the Minnesota Timberwolves upset the Denver Nuggets in the second round. But they ended up losing to Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. Still, it looks like he's not going anywhere anytime soon. The Wolves look like they're still in a good position to compete for a title. Probably the only thing that's going to hold Conley down is his age, because he's turning 37 next season. Injuries and wear and tear are already looming around the corner, and it's starting to look like he has at most 2 seasons left before his championship window closes. Derrick Rose. At 35 years old, Derrick Rose has the knees of a 50-year-old man, and that means that we're not sure how long he has left in his NBA career. But he's the type of player you'd want to cheer for because he's beaten the odds. Rose could have been one of the greatest players of all time if he didn't get injured more than 10 years ago. He's the youngest MVP in league history, and is arguably right up there as the most explosive point guard we've ever seen.
And Rose sniping the steal, goes up against Murray and scores!
But injuries have never been kind to him. His knees have made it hard for him to consistently compete at a high level since his injury. Rose has been more of a journeyman since leaving the Chicago Bulls long ago, but he hasn't been in the best position to win a title. Right now, he's with the Memphis Grizzlies as a backup point guard that hasn't played a lot of games. He's probably only there to serve as Ja Morant's mentor. The Grizzlies don't even look like they're in a position to win, although that could change once Morant returns to full form. Still, anything is possible. We want Rose to win, and it's going to be sweet if he finally gets an NBA championship, regardless if it's with Memphis or another team. It would also be great if he could close out his career as a champion, considering that this accomplishment could become the ultimate validation for a man who's struggled with health his entire career. DeMar DeRozan. The master of the mid-range shot, DeMar DeRozan, is one of the best pure scorers of the 2010s. When you look at him, he has all the tools and skills to be one of the best players on a championship team. He's tall, long, athletic, and skilled. DeMar has a game that also ages well because he relies heavily on his mid-range shot. Just a few years ago, he averaged 28 points at 32 years old. A season ago, he was putting up 24 points on an efficient clip. But he's never gotten close to a title.
DeMar DeRozan, 6 to go, got all the way to the bucket. Oh, DeMar!
He had good teams back in Toronto, but they always ran into LeBron James. With the constant losses in the playoffs, DeRozan's ability to lead a team came into question, and the rumors of him being unable to perform at his best during the postseason were given credibility when the Toronto Raptors won a title in 2019, just a season after trading DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. Since then, he's struggled to put himself in a good position to win it all. His time in San Antonio was forgettable. Meanwhile, he played extremely well on a mediocre Chicago Bulls team. Still, now that he's with the Sacramento Kings, which have key pieces like De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, he's still good enough to give any team 20 points, but it looks like he's going to be more of a veteran leader and clutch bucket getter on this team. The Kings look scary with this lineup, and they could finally win their first title since 1951. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is one of the league's most interesting players. He tends to coast a lot during the regular season, often happy enough to score somewhere around 20 points on a balanced Miami Heat team.
Swing by Love, a drive by Jimmy Butler.
Subpar regular season play and injuries have kept him off the All-Star team a lot of times, but everyone knows that this man can turn it up whenever he wants, especially when the stakes are high and the lights are bright. There's a reason why they call him Himmy Butler. He's him during the playoffs, and we've seen him turning into prime Michael Jordan time and time again. He led the Miami Heat to the finals in 2020 and 2023, only for them to get beaten by much better teams. But the Heat were underdogs in the seasons they made the finals, and the only reason why they got far enough was because Jimmy Buckets was there to lead them. Of course, he's right around 35 and is nowhere near his prime. He can still put up great numbers when the lights are bright, but there's no telling how long he can keep this up, even if he's one of the hardest working players in the league. But as long as he's available and the Miami Heat remains a team full of hardworking competitors, Jimmy has a chance to finally win an NBA title. Paul George. He seems to be one of the players capable of playing deep into his NBA career because Paul George has a game that ages well. From an athletic young man who suffered one of the scariest injuries in professional sports, PG-13 bounced back in the best way possible and returned to full form as one of the best wings in the entire league. He's also played on some pretty good teams his entire career. The Indiana Pacers were great during PG's early years, although they couldn't get past LeBron and the Miami Heat. After a short stint with the OKC Thunder, he moved to the LA Clippers to form one of the most talented wing duos in league history.
George wants it all. The three. Oh, my goodness.
The problem, however, was that the Clippers couldn't stay healthy. Kawhi always missed the games that mattered most, especially during the playoffs. In 2021, the Clippers were in a good position to finally make it to the NBA Finals, only for them to lose to the Phoenix Suns in the conference finals. He's moved on from the Clippers after realizing that this team will never be healthy enough to win a title. George is now with the Philadelphia 76ers, where he's set to play behind Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And even if he has to sacrifice his scoring, he's on a squad that looks talented enough to win it all next season as long as the key guys stay healthy. James Harden. It's so puzzling that one of the greatest offensive players in the history of the league has never won a championship. That's James Harden for you, and there are a lot of reasons why a ring remains one of the most elusive accolades for this all-time great player. After moving on from the OKC Thunder in what was the first and only time he's been to the finals, he went on to become a one-man show in Houston, putting up ridiculous scoring numbers while playing the facilitator role. Harden led the league in scoring a lot of times and went on to become the assists leader as well. He won the MVP in 2018 while leading the Rockets to the top of the West. But he's always struggled during the playoffs, unable to adjust his foul-heavy game to the physical nature of the postseason. On top of that, being a one-man load took a toll on him, especially when he didn't have teammates who could carry the load back then. But it's not as if he's played on bad teams after that. He played with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn and went on to play with Joel Embiid in Philly. A year ago, he played with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook in LA.
Seconds away from their 8th straight win. No way.
Still, he hasn't gotten close to his first ring. Even without George and Westbrook on the Clippers roster, this team still has enough talent to compete for a title. As long as Kawhi stays healthy, he can help the beard out and put the Clippers in a good position to win the franchise's first championship and Harden's first NBA ring. Russell Westbrook. If there's a player who may already be too washed up to lead a team, that would be Russell Westbrook. Brody is undoubtedly one of the greatest players of all time. He's the only player in history to average a triple-double more than once. He's an MVP, a former perennial All-Star, and a fiery competitor. Russ is also arguably the most explosive player we've ever seen, and he used those athletic legs well enough to put up highlight reel plays. But the problem with him is that he's often more about his stats than his wins. He played on good teams that couldn't get over the hump because Russ was a one-man statistics show. Then, when he moved to the Lakers late in his career, he couldn't coexist with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. He's already old and no longer has that nuclear athleticism.
Russ, throw it down! Throw it down, Russ!
On top of that, he lost his confidence in his jump shot. Basically, he no longer has the tools that helped him become a special talent. After struggling off the bench for the LA Clippers a year ago, he signed with the Denver Nuggets during the offseason. He's set to play the role of a backup point guard. Although he's unlikely to return to his nuclear form, there's still a chance he could compete for a title. But everything rests on Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. After all, the Nuggets looked unbeatable during their 2023 title run. If history repeats itself for the Nuggets, Russ could be looking at his first NBA title in 2024.